Right, buckle up for this one, gang, because the Tory conference was nuts, and there's still lots to. I have lots I still want to discuss and stuff people didn't go over to my recollection. This is the Tories getting absolutely cooked for their what's it called, culture war lies, and this is beautiful. This is in this episode of in this segment of things you love to see. This will be up there in the highest of levels. This will be number one. Honestly, seeing these guys and gals get absolutely grilled. So we start with Sophie Ridge, Sky's number one interviewer.
I just want to read a bit of your speech to you, because there was one section of it that really struck me. You said, it's no wonder Labour seems so relaxed about taxing meat. So Keir Starmer doesn't eat it, and Ed Miliband is clearly scarred by his encounter with a bacon sandwich.
Okay, that line there is actually quite funny. That I will give Claire Coutinho. That line is funny. But the rest of it is no joke.
Did you write? You didn't write that, did you?
I did actually write that. I think, it's good to have a light moment in your speech as well. But the point is actually...
They're not proposing a meat tax.
The point is actually very serious. So some of the things that Labour are proposing are incredibly hard for working families. So whether you have things like...
meat tax? That's what you're saying here.
Well, so the point is, they are proposing things which...
There's a big deflection. So the point is, there's your first deflection point, really.
Pushing families too hard. So you've got things like the ULEZ tax expansion, which does cost families £12.50 a day.
It's not meat tax, though, is it?
But that is very difficult. And they've got things like proposing...
The whole thing about the ULEZ tax is massively overblown anyways, and that's also Conservative Party politics. That's something Boris Johnson actually supported, I think, when he was London Mayor. This is a thing the government, I think, imposed on the Mayor of London. So to argue, like, oh, the ULEZ is really bad, it's like, why don't you stop it then?
That you would decarbonise the electricity grid by 2030 again, which would result in very difficult choices for families, and their plans to push up inflation by borrowing £28 billion. So the point that I was making is quite serious. Yes, that was a light-hearted moment in the speech, but the point is actually deadly serious.
So her source is Senator Armstrong.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
That if you push people too far in this country, you will lose the cause of climate change, something that I'm passionate about because I think it's really important that we get there.
So you're mad at Labour because they're going to borrow loads of money to invest into green technology, right? That's what that 28 billion thing was about. But then you're like, oh, I care about climate change. Oh, okay, buddy.
But genuinely, there isn't a meat tax.
Well, actually, if you try and push too hard, what you do end up with is people, and by the way, this has been part of the debate, talking about discouraging people from eating meat. Now,
that's completely different. That's if you're, there are reasons to discourage people from eating so much meat, especially in England where, red meat is not over too much consumption of red meat is not great. It's not good for you. There has been a push for people to eat less meat. Yes, that's not a meat tax though, is it?
Now, as someone who's worked in government for some time, I can tell you when people tell you that they want to discourage people from eating meat, what they mean
Where did
is
Keir Starmer say that?
No, they don't. If you say you want to discourage people, like, oh my days. If you say you want to discourage people from smoking, right, it doesn't mean you're going to put a bigger tax on cigarettes. Putting a bigger tax on cigarettes will discourage people, hopefully, from smoking. But, just saying that you discourage it doesn't mean you're going to do something about it. This is just silly.
So when they talk about moving at the pace that they're moving, what they're implying is that difficult choices will have to be...
What they're implying... Okay, so they didn't say it then. Again, her source is Senator Armstrong.
Made. And we know from having carefully safeguarded this debate that when people talk about trying to do things faster and quicker, they do talk about things like discouraging people from eating meat and changing their dietary requirements.
Keir Starmer's talked about people eating less meat, has he?
Well, I mean, Keir Starmer doesn't ever tell people exactly what he thinks, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, I gave Ridge the number one Sky News interviewer. Maybe that was a bit. Maybe I shouldn't have given it to her. I think there's a dude who's pretty good as well. He's thanks to him. It's the highest viewed video on the channel. It's the Liz Truss one, right? Watch it if you get a chance. If you just hit the most popular button on the channel, it's his interview with Liz Truss, and it's beautiful. But Sophie Ridge, I think, lost her spot as number one here. But we go over to Jo Coburn, who is a bit mixed when it comes to this stuff, but she's going to torture Andrea Leadsom here.
Stop the harebrained road calming and safety schemes, including 20 miles per hour zones, to end what he says is a war on motorists. But why have you waged a war on motorists for the last 13 years?
Well, there's a very technical issue about what, for example, Sadiq Khan is doing.
Oh, no, hang on a second. He said he wants to end the war on motorists. So clearly, you have waged a war on motorists for the last 13 years.
That is not the case, and...
Well, what are you ending, then?
So what the Prime Minister is seeking to do is to enable people who have no choice because the bus network isn't up to it. These are local authorities, many of them Labour-run, who decide on what buses to support, to put on, or their private sector bus networks, etc. People need to...
What have Labour got to do with private sector buses? What is he talking about? What's this?
Use their cars, and what the Prime Minister is saying is we need to enable people to continue to use their cars.
Well, using their cars, but do you agree with him that it's harebrained to have these 20-mile-per-hour speed zones?
It depends where. I mean, he's talking about a specific context. So outside a school, no, of course, 20 miles an hour is very sensible when children are running around. But outside a sort of a residential area along a relatively main road, then that is a harebrained scheme. Yeah, so it depends on the context.
Right, because in your constituency, though, the thing is, Andrew, in your constituency, a speed limit on a key road has been dropped from 40 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour, and you lobbied National Highways in support of this. We have the letter here. It's clear that with traffic calming measures, a lowered speed limit and appropriate signage to be used to deter HGVs from going through the centre of Towcester. This will prevent the A5 from being used as a rat run, and once the relief road is up and running, encourage them to use as their main route. You're in favour of lowering.
That's a whole different... honestly, the centre of Towcester is extraordinary. It's an old Roman road,
isn't it?
Towcester, is this your local MP, really? You know, this is moronic, saying, oh, you know, we need to, you know, 20 miles per hour speed limits make no sense. Outside of school, sure, you know, near a main road, no. Lorries, you know, which use these bigger roads, obviously, because, you know, they're massive vehicles. Then she's like, oh, well, actually, you know, there's further context needed here. It's not all the same. And you're like, bro, like, this is embarrassing. So that's two really embarrassing interviews here. And this is the third one, Victoria Derbyshire kind of... it's just embarrassing, honestly, from this dude.
Something Mark Harper said today, your colleague, the Transport Secretary. He said this in his speech. It was about 15-minute cities. He said, what is sinister and what we shouldn't tolerate is the idea that local councils can decide how often you go to the shops. Which council is proposing that they will decide how often people can go to the shops?
I'm afraid I missed that speech. I'll have to look.
Classic. Oh, you know, I didn't hear that, you know, so I can't comment on it, even though she's given him a quote. You know, like, yeah, this is the Dutch politicians make, but they really don't answer something. They say, oh, I wasn't there, I didn't hear it happen. It's like, here's a quote. It's like, well, I can't comment without the full context. You're cowardly. We're going to watch this one again. This is brilliant.
Mark Harper said today, your colleague, the Transport Secretary, he said this in his speech. It was about 15-minute cities. He said, what is sinister and what we shouldn't tolerate is the idea that local councils can decide how often you go to the shops. Which council is proposing that they will decide how often people can go to the shops?
I'm afraid I missed that speech. I'll have to look into why he said that and what the example is.
Please do.
I'm going to have to come back to you on that.
You know, I know I criticise Labour a lot, but their MPs like doing badly in interviews. But this lot have just absolutely melted under the most basic of spotlights here. You know, when we come to the general election, if these people are put into doing interviews, oh my God, there's going to be endless content. Like, man, like, I don't think I'll run out of video topics for a good 3-4 weeks, to be honest with you, because it's going to be embarrassing interview after embarrassing interview. Stunning behaviour. Oh, you know, I don't know why he said that. I need to look into it. Oh, I wasn't even there when it happened, bro. Like, no, I don't even know Mark Harper. You know, me and him are not friends. You had Andrea Leadsom embarrassing herself, not for the first time. I mean, she, you know, I think she said she would be a better Tory party leader or better Prime Minister because she has children. And then everyone's like, this was when she went against Theresa May in the leadership contest. And everyone's like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, well, actually, I'm deciding I'm going to pull out of this race. I'm like, you know, Claire Coutinho as well, embarrassing display. She's relatively, I haven't seen too much of her, but, you know, the interviews I have seen, pretty embarrassing. So, yeah, not great again. So, yeah, we'll leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. The Tories' fictitious cultural wars getting absolutely battered here. You got the first one being this meat tax. Absolutely, well, I think she should have done a better job, but, she had no answer for it, really. The Tory MP, you got Andrea Leadsom here talking about the war on motorists, and then realising that actually she's the villain because she's running this war on motorists that she made up, that this whole party made up. And you got this dude here, Gareth Davies, saying, "Oh, I wasn't there, bro, when the speech happened, so, I can't comment on it." Shocking. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.